anyway, that was the advice we gave her.
Yeah.
So,
On the other
how many
hand-
history teachers does the high school have?
On the other hand, do you know that when I was in grad school, I actually got recruited by the CIA? And you know why? What do history majors back then? What did they have a reputation for? Data analyst.
Yeah.
So the job would have been sit behind a desk all day and analyze data.
And what
I
I told
said
my
no.
son, Steve, I said, get more than one teaching credential.
There he is.
And you'll
Smart.
never go hungry. You'll never go hungry. So,
That's right.
Rob, I'm going to put us live right now. And that'll be your cue. So we're live. And that's your cue to go ahead and get us started.
All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock on the dot, and I'll take a roll call. Clerk Jan Grist.
Here.
Elizabeth Martinez.
Present.
Trustee Steve, wait for it, Kane.
Here.
Trustee Carla Torres de Luna.
Here.
And Rob Bernowski, present. Jan, would you like to lead us in the flag salute?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the
of the
flag
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with, I can't do this, with one nation, under God. I don't know. I lost. The echo is killing me.
It's not easy to do, Jan. You're right. It's not easy to do.
Did we get through? Did I make a mockery of it? I didn't mean to.
You did fine.
Okay. It was not my intention to make a mockery of it.
Oh, don't worry about it. We know what the intent was.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Steve, Jan, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. Clerk Grist, are there any public comments?
Not that I'm aware of.
There are none.
Okay. So moving on, we'll go to the first item, number 7.
Thank you.
Diego, I believe that's you, COVID-19.
Thank you, President Bernowski. I wanted to start by sharing with the board and with the public the actual document that was sent out to all school districts and all county offices dated July 17th. And so basically, after a several-month process of providing school districts with recommendations and suggestions, the California Department of Public Health and the governor put out more stringent and more strict language regarding how school reopening would need to take place in the 2020-2021 school year. What the summary of the biggest change, the main change from the original guidance and recommendations to what this document is requiring is that school districts can only reopen in person at any time if they're located in a local health jurisdiction, which would be in our case, San Benito County, that has not been on the county monitoring list in the prior 14 days. And as it currently stands, San Benito County is on the monitoring list. So that takes every ability for us away from having any kind of an in-person reopening. So I want to take you through what it means to be on that list, basically. The first is that when you have an excess number of coronavirus cases per 100,000 residents, that's one of the criteria that will land you on the list. And San Benito County is on the list for that particular reason. And what it sets into motion is a weight process of us as a school district evaluating that waiting list and the criteria that set you on that waiting list in terms of being able to reassess and determine whether or not we're ready to bring students back. So in the case of Hollister School District, our county is on the list. As a result of being on the list, our county has our district has two options. So when and if San Benito County would come off of the list, it would not require us to immediately bring students back, but rather we would have a decision to make about bringing students back. And I wanted to make that clear to the board is that in this process, we as a school board and as a school district retain the right to decide when to bring students back onto campus. And I wanted to reference something that Trustee Kane mentioned. I think it was at the end of May or maybe at the beginning of June at one of our special meetings, Steve, where you mentioned the idea of even when we're ready to come back, it might be prudent to bring students back in a hybrid model in order to be able to teach kids how to physically, socially distance and to teach them the type of sanitizing and cleanliness techniques that having been teachers and having been parents, kids are not used to the kind of requirements we're going to put in place for them when we do come back. So I wanted to start there. I wanted to give the board an opportunity to ask any questions about the order itself and to basically just take us down the road of reviewing the document. So Jan, you wanted to start off?
Yeah. Okay. My question is this. So, let's say San Benito County, we get off of the monitoring list, and then we are, and we're off it for 14 days. And then we as a school district then are allowed to, let's say we go to the hybrid model, and we go on that for a while. But if the county is put back onto the monitoring list, then we have to go back to the distance learning again.
That's right.
So it could be like a yo-yo. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now, do we have the right as a district? I think you just said it. I just want to make sure I'm hearing it correctly. Do we have the right that, let's say, the county gets off of the monitoring list, but do we have a right to continue with the distance learning until maybe we get through the flu season, the regular flu season?
We do. We retain that right. And I think that's something that every district's considering, Jan, where you say, okay, let's use a date that we said October 1st. Let's say between now and October 1st, cases decline. But we're all parents. We know what happens in the month of November and December is
right.
The runny noses and the sneezing and the coughs. And so if we bring everybody back and we end up having to go back on distance learning, what have we lost in that process? What have we changed in that process? And ultimately, it'll be the decision of the 5 school board members to make. And if we don't see any change at all in cases between now and then it's an easy decision to make because we're still on the monitoring list and the decision's been made for us. But this board will have to determine whether going into a hybrid model only to come back out 3 weeks later might cause more problems than it solves.
Well, I was a single parent, and the idea that I would secure childcare one way, and then all of a sudden I'd have to find childcare a different way, and then the realization that I would have to find childcare a different way. Boy, that's a real hardship on parents.
Yeah.
And I want to jump in. I think too, I've been watching other school district meetings, and just today I was watching Santa Clara County Board of Soups. And I think the other thing we need to look at is not only what our surrounding counties that are similar to us are doing, but also that what they're talking about as timelines. You know, today I heard one of the supervisors say, just, you know, let's be honest, this is not going to go away anytime soon.
Right.
And the vaccine, if they get a vaccine, is going to take a year or two, right, is what we're hearing the scientists say. And so let's be realistic. And I'm wondering, Diego, do we, you know, at what point are we going to decide, you know, is that for the next week meeting or next month, I'm assuming, where we decide what time frame we're going to look at? Because I'm with Trustee Grist on, I don't want to go to hybrid just because we've been in the clear for 14 days. And all that means is we're not being monitored. That doesn't mean COVID went away.
That's right.
Right? So, you know, maybe looking at a more longer term plan, not only for the consistency and stability so that we do everything right, at least for a nice chunk of time. And when do we do that?
Well, I'm concerned for the, you know, a lot of our parents spoke out about, you know, this is going to be a hardship for them. And yes, it is. And we all understand that. It's a hardship for everyone. But they also need some consistency, something that they can count on. They can tell their employer, this is what it's going to be. We can't be up and down with them. That's not fair to them. They're trying to, you know, keep a job.
Well, just so you guys know too, our employer is looking at still a few months down for people, you know, in Santa Clara County to continue as is. So
you both bring up a point I've been thinking about. I know colleges, universities, a lot of them have said this whole semester is going to be virtual, online. Okay. And then we'll decide what to do the next semester. I think I've been thinking a lot more about this lately. Granted, I like the hybrid plan to get started with, but I can't see switching back and forth like this. When you brought up parents, that'd be the worst thing we could do to them. Say, okay, now we're going to the hybrid. Oh, sorry, now we got to go back to the other one. We can't do that, I don't believe. So I'm thinking in terms of maybe just doing the distance learning the whole semester, at least through December. That would get us through at least half of the flu season and a lot of other areas, and we won't have to be jerking the parents back and forth. They'll know right from the beginning, this is the way it's going to be. And it's going to be this way at least to the end of the year. That's what I've been thinking.
I'd like to be a little bit of a contrarian here and say at the first available time that we legally can, that we have an option for at least those students and those teachers that want the kids in the classroom and are willing to teach in the classroom, that we make it available to them. And I say this because I think there is a huge demand. I know that the community, specifically our community, is divided on it. But when it gets down to it, 50% of the people would like their kids to be in class and 50% would not. I'd like to accommodate the 50% if possible. And I don't know that it is, but certain things that have come to light is children, while they might test positive, they really don't get the disease, not like the older people do and the middle-aged do. Even the middle-aged don't really get it that bad unless they have underlying conditions. And then again, I was reading also today that what they've really determined is, COVID-19, it isn't transmittable or it isn't transmitting from surfaces. It really is, the close confines, like being in an elevator and closer bars and things like that. So I just would like us to remain open-minded about it, because the bottom line is there's a huge amount of the population that does want it. We can't do it due to this legal order. I'm not trying to say that we can buck that, but if we had a small population that was willing to do it, we could ask for a waiver. And I don't know what that process is. I don't think anybody knows what what it is, but it is possible for a school to open with the state's permission, regardless of the conditions. So anyway, I'd like us to remain open-minded on it.
What about a compromise, fellow board members and superintendent, of looking at midway through the semester and kind of, and if we no longer have to have the state order, then as a board, we look at it, and talk about it, and then we have a better idea of where we're at, right? Nobody knows what the future holds. And that way we're not doing this, whole semester, and we're not doing, we're not putting ourselves in a box, but we're being more flexible. As an
Yeah, but we have to make sure that our employees want to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to force. I'm not going to force a
Lately, I
teacher.
haven't heard too many teachers talking about wanting
Yeah,
to come
I
back
haven't either.
to the schools.
The teachers
getting a
have
lot
to
of
want
orders.
to do it. I'm not going to force a teacher to do it. I can't do that.
Me either.
Sorry, can't do it.
I agree. I'm
Oh,
on
yeah.
the same
I'm not
page
suggesting-
with that.
I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting we force our teachers. I'm just saying, like, can we look at a plan?
If they want to go, yeah. If they want
like
to do
where
it,
we just kind of look at where we at today,
and
and
if we
then-
have teachers that want to volunteer and do
Right.
it, fine.
right.
That's okay.
But
They have
I
to
cannot.
volunteer, though.
Yeah.
They have to volunteer.
Right.
But if they don't want to volunteer, then it's not going to happen. I can't force anybody to do that.
Either.
One thing that will be difficult to do is we're going to assign all of our students to teachers. So we'll
Right.
have at a
Classes
given
set
school,
up.
at a given school, we'll have 4 teachers teaching 3rd grade. And if we decide to come back in a hybrid model and only half of the students are comfortable coming back and half of the teachers are comfortable coming back, in order to make it feasible, we'd actually have to switch the teachers of half the kids in that
Yeah.
grade level.
Yeah,
at that
you're right
school.
about
So we
that.
would take 120 kids and we would take 60 and we would change their teachers from teacher A to teacher B because of the potential decision of saying, I don't feel comfortable returning.
Right.
I also think that what the school board is what I'm requesting the school board to do tonight is to vote to agree to begin the year with distance learning. And I think we should come back in August with more specificity on the timelines that we're going to put in place, because the year basically breaks up into trimesters, trimester 1, trimester 2, and trimester 3.
Right.
And that would make the most sense in terms of choosing those dates, because those dates they're historical in our district.
Yeah.
Parents understand how the trimesters work, and so actually to some extent it does kind of make sense too in terms of coronavirus. So if we see a rapid improvement,
Yeah.
coming back the second week in November could make sense if we're
Yeah.
seeing a rapid improvement.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we see kind of a swoon and more cases, then the end of February actually makes a lot of sense too, which is when
Yeah.
the second trimester ends.
Yeah. I think those are good
So-
timelines, Diego. I mean, because you were hinting towards putting that in place, which makes the best sense. And so we do our check-ins and see where we're at. And, but at least this way, parents know, everybody knows, it's a fixed time. We're not going to be jumping back and forth. And whatever decision based on what the current conditions are is what, we're going to always do what's best for our students and our staff.
Yeah, and then the board will just need to decide if the decision to return because conditions are getting better is made, and it's made for that end of the first trimester time period. The board will just need to decide when you'll act to make that decision. So you might say 30 days is the minimum amount of time that we would put on parents to say, hey, you have a month to figure out and undo your child care and now create a new after-school care plan. And that might make the most sense to say, okay, if we're going to ask kids to come back to school November 9th, we're going to decide it on October 9th so that the community has time to make
Right.
a decision. And that's something,
Yeah,
like I said,
Diego.
we would bring back in August.
Diego,
Yes.
when can we talk about the mechanics of distance learning? I think I let you know about all the emails, at least I received. I think other board members did. Is this the appropriate time in the meeting, or is that a closed session item for the 28th?
I would say that because we're currently at the table with our bargaining partners, we should not discuss it in open session right now. We do have a meeting of the board next Monday, and we absolutely could discuss it under negotiations in closed session at that time. What I think we can talk about is the language that the state has put out that specifies.
I'm sorry, Diego. Did you say we have a meeting on Monday?
We have a meeting on Tuesday. I'm sorry, the 28th.
Okay, good.
We have
Okay.
a meeting
Okay.
a week from today. But
Okay.
the state has put out requirements that are much different than the requirements they put out in March, which is there's a requirement for daily live instruction. There's a requirement for mandatory attendance monitoring. There's a requirement that the district engage stakeholders in a plan to ensure student learning. There's a requirement for internet connectivity. So there's a lot of requirements that the state has put out. And we can absolutely talk about that right now. As far as what our specific responses will be, I also think it's the board's right to comment on what your opinion is about that. And then in closed session, we would actually talk in more detail about what priorities we have.
Okay. Well, I just want any of the public to know, including our teachers and staff, that your comments are being heard.
Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot to take in. I think we're in the same boat as pretty much every other district in that we've now done 3 different plans for starting the school year. So I feel good about the fact that our planning we're actually done with our planning in a way. And so we'll be able to take this plan and move it into implementation in 3 months or 6 months, whenever that date arrives. So with that, President Bernowski, I'll send it back over to you to take us on to the next item.
Well, is there any other discussion from my fellow board members? Hearing none. I would like to add a personal comment here, because we do impact so many families, and as you guys know, I'm a little bit of a rebel, but my family and I were just on a little vacation this past week, and we were staying in a town that, although it only has 6,000 people, there's probably 6,000 people that come into the town every week, if not every day. It's Estes Park, Colorado. But what was remarkable was how serious the entire town takes wearing masks. And they're not obnoxious about it. They're not mean about it. But every store, every restaurant, has all the signs. And they do things like, if you're not ready to order, they just leave. There's no lingering around people and stuff. But what impressed me was, I looked it up. They've only had 14 cases of COVID during this entire time, because it's their livelihood that they're worried about. Yeah. And my point being is, however we end up doing this, I think that we can impact the community as the largest government entity, impacting the largest number of people, if we take a very positive attitude about taking the necessary steps and causing other people to as well. So I just wanted to add that personal spin to things. And unless there's any other comments on item 7A, we'll move on to item 8, which is the resolution that allows us to do what Diego is asking us to do.
Yeah. So I'll begin, President Bernowski, by just taking you to the updated language in this resolution, and it specifically states the following: when schools may reopen if they are in a jurisdiction that has not been on the monitoring list for 14 days. Once schools are reopened, it is recommended that surveillance testing be implemented. Specifically, examples include testing all staff over 2 months, where 25% of staff are tested every 2 weeks, or 50% every month to rotate testing of staff over time. And whereas the district recognizes that individual school closures may need to occur, specifically the recommendation being that when there are multiple cases, 2 or more, in multiple cohorts, 2 or more at a school. So if we use an example like HDLA, Gavilan Hills HDLA will have 40 teachers next year. So what this is saying is that if that school has 2 teachers where there are 2 kids in each of those 2 teachers' classes that have coronavirus, the recommendation is that, again, they would close that campus. So that's where Jan's prior comment about, I can't recall if you said ping pong or
Right,
kind of
yeah.
back and forth, it could end up in a situation like that, because we do have some large schools. And when you have multiple grade levels at schools and multiple teachers at each grade level, or the other part of the language is when at least 5% of the total number of teachers, students, or staff are cases within a 14-day period. So at a school like R.O. Harding, where we have 500 students, that would be 25 cases. 25 cases, the recommendation would be to reinitiate a school closure. And then what this basically does, this resolution does, is it states that effective tonight, the school district is establishing 100% distance learning to commence the 2021 school year, and that the district may implement hybrid or a full return given the improvement of public health circumstances. And that language gives this board the ability to determine when that has taken place according to the orders that are given to us. But it really gives this board the flexibility, and I would recommend that the board approve this resolution, and then at our next August meeting, make decisions about length of time for distance learning and specific dates that we would determine to extend or bring students back from distance learning.
At our August or July meeting?
At our August meeting.
Okay.
If the board would like to bring that forth at our July meeting, I think we could do that. The only thing I would say is you don't have a lot of information yet. You might make a decision next Tuesday and in 20, 30 days decide you didn't really like that decision, but I'll leave that up to the board.
Yeah, that's only a week away. That's really not enough time.
I agree.
I did have one question pertinent to this. You mentioned all these tests that we're going to have to be giving. Do we have that? Have we ordered those things? I mean, where's that money going to come from? That can't be cheap.
Well, and thank you for saying that, Steve. And one of the things that is outside of our control is we don't determine whether or not tests are available, and we don't determine whether or not we can access those tests. But I left that in there because I want the public to know what the recommendation is coming from the state on how we would safely reopen, because the question that Jan brought forth of saying teachers may not feel safe, and Liz supporting that idea as employees may not feel safe coming back to work. Well, the testing is a measure to attempt to bring down those concerns and say we're taking this very seriously. So if we agree that we want to avail ourselves of those tests, in certain circumstances the tests are free. In others, people use their health insurance benefits, health and welfare benefits provided by the district, and the fee is greatly reduced. we had a meeting today and several employees shared that they ended up paying about $50 for their coronavirus test when they used their district's health and welfare benefit plan.
So on the testing,
Hmm.
I'm wondering if we could reach out to our Board of Soups and see if we can partner on that piece. I noticed I think it was Salinas, Monterey County Board of Soups, they put out a letter. I don't know if it was a resolution. I have it saved, but they put something in support of their schools.
Yeah.
And providing the resources that they can during this time of the pandemic. So I'm wondering if we could do something similar.
I think that's a great idea, Trustee Torres de Luna, and Rob, if it's okay with you, I can put something together and send it to you. I think either yourself or myself would be the right person to send that to the Board of Supervisors. I think, the Board of Supervisors, especially in our county, they're a very important group of people, and their support and their advocacy for school districts and for schools is critical. So I think we should definitely consider sending something, a communication saying, support us in having access to those coronavirus tests, basically prioritize educators because we are essential workers.
I think you just put the spin on it. It's to prioritize the educators, make sure they're first in line for it, and I love it. Yeah. So we can talk about when I drop the resolution off.
Yeah.
So so that we can discuss the resolution properly, can we have a motion from someone to pass the resolution?
Sure. I'll make a motion that we pass resolution 1, 2021 to support in support of a return to school campuses in accordance with the California Department of Public Health Directive dated July 17th, 2020.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I had another question or comment on the piece of if there were COVID positive tests and we would have to shut the school down, then I just want to make sure, are we still going to be able to provide some kind of distance learning for those that are not COVID positive?
Yeah, this gets crazy.
You know what I mean? Like, so we're shutting the school down. What happens to everybody else? And is that something we talk about next month? So
we can talk about it now. So let me give a couple of different scenarios. If a child goes to school and is coronavirus positive and has the symptoms, and the child has been in close proximity to the teacher and his or her classmates, then that child sets dominoes in motion for the teacher to go get tested. And if the teacher is ill, that teacher cannot be required or expected to do any teaching or any monitoring of any kind of academics. So in a circumstance where it was one teacher at one school, it would be fairly easy for us to have a substitute teacher, lock in with the lesson plans, pull lesson plans from the other teachers in that grade level, and have lots of support. But where it gets very complicated if it's multiple teachers or multiple teachers at different schools, because the number of substitute teachers in our district is very minimal. And the absences will be likely extended. If the teacher actually has coronavirus, the absence will be a 10, 12, 14-day absence. And Steve and Jan, you're welcome to chime in on what it's like when you have to hand over your classes to somebody else for 14 days. It's a big problem.
It's not a good idea. It's
hard. So if it's one or two teachers, then we have, as a district, we have a handful of really, really strong substitute teachers that many of them have actually been teachers before or have credentials.
Right.
They prefer the flexibility of not having a full-time contract. So in cases like that, I'm totally confident that it will work for them and we'll put it together. But if the number gets beyond 5 or 6 teachers, then it is not a plan that is going to easily work for the district.
Well, and frankly, we don't know how many people want to be substitutes in this climate with the pandemic.
Well, it's a totally different job than it used to.
Yeah.
Superintendent Diego, if I could just ask a question. So this resolution specifically calls out the July 21st, 2020 Hollister School District reopening plan.
Yes.
So exactly, what is that plan? What are you referencing there?
So what this is referencing is if you recall, the reopening
June
plan that was
28th.
shared with the board at our last school board meeting. That reopening plan contained language in there that allowed the board to implement full distance learning or a full return to campuses, depending on the public health scenario, improving or deteriorating. So that's what this is. It's basically been updated to match tonight's meeting and include the implementation of distance learning as the district's plan moving into the new school year. So all of the other language pertaining to hybrid is still there, and all the other language pertaining to a full return is still there. The only thing that's been added is we're starting on distance learning.
So I'm just wondering, and maybe this is just the contracting person me coming out, but should we amend this resolution just to include that plan,
Sure.
correctly labeled, since it's referenced here,
Sure.
just so that here we know what this resolution is, and we know what the plan is unequivocally.
Yep. And I'll attach it to the board documents, Rob, and make sure that it's available for public review. And like I said, the meeting, our meeting itself is part of a public record, so it will include this conversation. It'll include because we're holding this via Zoom. The recording of this being on our YouTube page, it will indicate that the plan that this board approved on June 23rd has been modified to indicate that we're starting on distance learning, and that's the one modification that was made to the plan. All the other components of the plan are still there.
Okay. Well, I just like the things tied up in a nice, neat bow. So, but I have the plan from last.
I'll make that addition.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of Jan Grist's motion to pass resolution number 1, 2021, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? Hearing, okay, so the motion passes 5-0.
Okay.
Excellent. So any announcements, Carla?
No.
No. Steve Kane?
None.
Jan Grist?
Nope.
Liz Martinez?
I don't have any announcements. Just wondering, or wasn't sure as far as the next board meeting though. I know you and Aaron had been walking around site to site. Are we going to be able to get an update on facilities so that we kind of know what, because we know there are some schools in dire need of roofs, et cetera. So we weren't going to be, buying any new portables or anything like that. But I know, we still need to kind of look to see what we need to make sure we maintain so that, with roofs especially, just making sure we can get those addressed before the rainy season starts.
I
just wasn't sure, where we're at with that.
I can give an update at our meeting.
Okay.
And it's not on the agenda, but I'm just going to ask, did everybody get the invitation to visit Rancho Santana,
Yes.
August 27th, 28th? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I have no announcements. I assume that if there was a future agenda item request, somebody would have said that. Carla? Jan?
Well,
Steve?
he's already got it on. I want to again make sure that at this July 28th board meeting, we have an update exactly how the distance learning is going to be held, the students will be held accountable for the work. I'm still very concerned about that. I think Rob was too.
Got it. I agree with you 100% there. So, okay. So no other business being here. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:41 p.m.
So move.
Second.
Oh,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Have a good evening, everyone.
You
you
too.
too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yeah.